Why overthinking never solves anything, and why it hurts you. Buddhist perspective. Chapter 1. What is thinking? Understanding the nature of overthinking. There's a moment that many people recognize, a moment when you're lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, and your mind won't stop. It replays a conversation from earlier, imagines what could have gone better, what might go wrong tomorrow, and suddenly, you're no longer here. You're lost in a storm that only exists inside your head, and you don't even know how it started. In the Buddha's teaching, this is not unusual. He taught that the mind creates stories all the time. Thinking is one of the natural functions of the mind. In Pali, the term sankhara refers to mental formations, thoughts, emotions, reactions. They are not fixed. They are not you. They rise and fall, like waves. But what happens is, we don't just let them rise and fall. We grab onto them. We believe in them. And that's when overthinking begins. From a psychological view, thinking includes memory, imagination, planning, analyzing. It's how we make sense of life. But the problem isn't thinking. The problem begins when we think too much, and we don't realize we're doing it. According to the Buddha's teaching, overthinking is a form of clinging. We don't just think, we attach to our thoughts. We take imagination as truth. The mind tells a story, and we follow it. We forget to ask, is this real? Is this helpful? Instead, we go deeper into it, thinking that one more thought will give us clarity. But it doesn't. In modern terms, overthinking shows up in many ways. We replay a mistake from the past, again and again. We imagine what someone might be thinking of us. We plan for things that haven't happened yet, and might never happen. Sometimes we even argue with people in our minds before we've spoken a word to them. It's a quiet kind of suffering, but it affects everything. One of the most common signs of overthinking is living in what-ifs. What if I fail? What if they leave? What if something goes wrong? These questions seem like they help us prepare, but they don't bring peace. They keep us stuck in fear. And the strange thing is, the more we think to escape fear, the more fear we create. It becomes a circle with no exit. So why is overthinking so common today? Life has become louder, faster, more demanding. We carry our work in our phones. We see people's lives online and compare them with our own. There's pressure to do more, be more, know more. In the middle of all this, we feel unsure. So we think harder, hoping it will give us control. But the mind doesn't work that way. The more we chase control through thinking, the more unstable we feel. According to the Buddha's teaching, true stability doesn't come from thinking. It comes from seeing clearly. But clarity doesn't arise when the mind is busy. It arises when the mind becomes quiet. When we stop grabbing onto every thought and start observing instead. This doesn't mean thinking is bad. Thoughts can be useful, but they are not always true, and they are not always needed. When we forget this, we fall into overthinking. And when we overthink, we lose connection with the present. We lose connection with our breath, with our body, with the people in front of us. Thinking has its place, but it was never meant to be the ruler of your life. The Buddha reminded us that the mind can be a servant, or it can be a master. If you don't understand it, it will control you. But when you begin to see how it works, even just a little, a space opens up. A space where you don't have to believe every thought. A space where peace can enter. And sometimes, it's only when we pause and notice the space between thoughts that we begin to realize the mind has been thinking on its own all along. Chapter 2. Thoughts happen without you knowing. Have you ever noticed how thoughts appear even when you're not trying to think? You could be brushing your teeth, and suddenly your mind tells you, "You didn't answer that email," or "What if she's upset with me?" You didn't invite those thoughts. They just showed up. The Buddha taught that thoughts are not something we control. They arise naturally, just like sounds or smells. They come and go like clouds passing through the sky, but we don't see it that way. We believe there's a little person inside our head who thinks all the thoughts, and that this person is me. This belief creates a problem, because the moment a thought appears, we think, "I thought that. It must be true." And without realizing it, we follow the thought. We let it guide how we feel, how we act, and even how we treat others. Imagine something simple. You send a message to a friend. A day passes, and they don't reply. That's the situation. Nothing more. But your mind begins writing a story. They must be ignoring me. Maybe I said something wrong. They don't care anymore. These thoughts make your chest tighten. You feel rejected, and that feeling becomes real. So next time you see them, you act cold. They notice, and now they really do feel distant. What started as one thought, without evidence, has shaped the whole relationship. According to the Buddha's teaching, this is how suffering begins. Not because of what actually happened, but because we didn't see the thought when it first appeared. We didn't question it, we just believed it. And from there, one thought became a feeling, then a behavior, and eventually, a reality we created for ourselves. The heart beats on its own. The lungs breathe on their own. In the same way, the mind produces thoughts by itself. But instead of just observing this natural process, we get caught up in it. We think every story the mind tells must mean something. We forget that thoughts are just mental formations. They are not solid. They are not you. And this is where many people live, not in the present, but in the stories their mind creates, worrying about what might happen, replaying what already happened, trying to fix something that only exists in thought. Most people don't realize this. They think they are choosing their thoughts. But the truth is, they are just reacting. Like someone in a dream who doesn't know they're dreaming, they respond to everything the mind says, never questioning it, never seeing it clearly. That's why the Buddha reminded us to wake up, not in some big dramatic way, but in small moments. In the moment when a thought appears and you simply notice it. You see it rise, and instead of following it, you pause. That small space of awareness, that is where freedom begins. Overthinking doesn't start because you're weak. It starts because you're human. The mind does what it does. But suffering happens when we live inside those thoughts without seeing them for what they are. No thought has ever knocked on your door and asked for permission to enter. They just show up. But once they arrive, it's up to you whether you sit with them or let them pass. And learning that difference between reacting and seeing is the beginning of wisdom. Chapter 3. The mind loves to think, but that's not wisdom. You could be washing the dishes. Water is running. Soap bubbles gather in the sink. Your hands are moving, but your mind is somewhere else. What should I eat for dinner? Did I say the wrong thing in that meeting? Why hasn't she messaged back yet? Tomorrow's going to be stressful. The dishes are clean, but your heart feels heavy. The body is here, but the mind is not. It's running in circles, thinking, worrying, planning, remembering. Not because it has to, but because that's what it's used to doing. According to the Buddhist teaching, this is how the untrained mind behaves. It keeps moving, not because movement is needed, but because stillness feels strange. Like a monkey jumping from tree to tree, the mind doesn't know how to rest. The strange part is, most people think this is normal. Even worse, they think it's helpful. They believe the more they think, the more they'll understand. The more they analyze, the closer they'll get to the answer. But in Buddhism, this isn't called intelligence. It's called restlessness. The Buddha pointed to a deeper kind of knowing, paññā, which means wisdom. But wisdom doesn't grow from thinking. It grows from seeing. Wisdom is not made of ideas. It's made of silence. He taught that true understanding doesn't appear when the mind is busy chasing thoughts. It appears when the mind stops long enough to truly see. Like a lake on a windy day, when the surface is rough, you can't see anything clearly. But when the water becomes still, it reflects the sky. When you're lost in overthinking, even small things become complicated. You try to make the right choice, but every option feels heavy. You go over the same thoughts again and again, but nothing becomes clear. That's because thinking doesn't bring clarity. It only brings more thought. The Buddha reminded us that silence isn't emptiness. It's the space where clarity can enter. When the mind becomes quiet, not because you forced it, but because you stopped feeding it more thoughts, something deeper starts to wake up. This doesn't mean you shouldn't think. It means don't mistake thinking for wisdom. The mind can be clever, but cleverness is not the same as insight. Insight arises when you're present, when you're truly here, not in the past, not in the future, not in the stories, just here. Even when washing dishes, you can be awake. You can feel the water, notice your breath, hear the sound of the plate against the sink. No need to escape, no need to solve anything. Just be here. That's where clarity begins. And when you see how the mind tries to run, again and again, you don't have to fight it. You just notice it. That gentle noticing is already enough to bring space. And in that space, you'll find something the busy mind could never reach: peace. Chapter 4. Going Beyond Overthinking, Returning to Awareness. The Buddha taught that freedom doesn't come from fixing every thought, but from seeing clearly that we don't have to follow them. That's the part most people miss. They keep trying to control their thinking, to make their mind stop, to force silence. But the more they try, the louder the mind becomes. According to the Buddha's teaching, the first step to going beyond overthinking is not to fight with thoughts, but to become aware of them. Just watch. A thought comes, and instead of jumping into it like a river current, you simply notice. Ah, a thought. This moment of seeing is simple. but it changes everything. You're no longer inside the thought. You're aware of it. You've stepped out. That awareness is already free. It doesn't argue with the thought. It doesn't try to fix it or believe it. It just sees. And in that seeing, the thought loses its power, like a shadow that disappears when you turn on the light. The Buddha reminded us that it's not thinking itself that causes suffering, it's the clinging. We grab the thought, we feed it, we believe it, we act on it. And that turns a moment into a story into an identity, and that identity into a lifetime of unnecessary pain. But here's something simple and profound. You don't have to stop thinking. You only have to stop believing every thought that appears. Trying to stop thoughts is like trying to hold the wind in your hands. It's impossible, and it creates more stress. But if you stop running after the wind, if you sit quietly and notice the breeze, you're already free from its pull. So how do we do that? We come back to the present, right now, not tomorrow, not last year, just here. You feel the air entering your nose. You notice the rise and fall of your chest. You feel the ground beneath your feet, the sound of birds, the sensation of sitting. No need to change anything. No need to understand anything. You're just here. In this space, overthinking can't survive. Because overthinking always needs time. It needs a future to worry about or a past to regret. But when you are fully present, time falls away. There's nothing to hold on to. No story to follow. Only what is. That's what mindfulness means. It's not a technique or a special state. It's a return. A gentle returning to what's actually happening. Right now. Again and again. And each time you return, the mind becomes softer. The thoughts lose their grip. The stories start to fall apart. You begin to see, that was just a thought. And then the next time it comes, you don't get pulled in so deeply. You remember, this too will pass. And it does. This is not about escaping life. It's about being fully in it, without being lost in it. When you live this way, even difficult emotions like fear or sadness become easier to carry, because you're not pushing them away or adding extra thoughts to them. You're just seeing, this is fear. That's all. And in that seeing, the fear already begins to change. The Buddha didn't teach us how to control life. He taught us how to see life clearly. And that clarity begins with awareness. Not later, not when you finally fix everything. Now. So if your mind is full of thoughts, don't worry. That's not the problem. The only problem is forgetting that you don't have to follow them. A thought is not you. It's just a cloud passing through the sky. You are the open space that sees it come and go. And that space has never been confused. Conclusion. Thoughts are just tools. They are not you. Thoughts serve a purpose. They help us solve problems, make plans, and navigate daily life. But they are just tools, not the essence of who we are. They don't have the power to lead us to true happiness or understanding. The Buddha taught that only when the mind is still, when we cease identifying with our thoughts, can we see things as they truly are. In that stillness, the truth emerges naturally. The practice is simple yet profound. Recognize that a thought is just a thought. It's not your identity, and it's not the truth. It is a passing moment. not something to hold on to or define your experience. The path to freedom is not easy. It requires patience and awareness. But it is the only way to live fully, without being controlled by the endless stream of thoughts. The mind may keep thinking, but you can learn to see it as it is, just a tool, not the truth of your being.